Greetings gamers, I'm Anto, and there has been a question plaguing my mind lately. I've been thinking about it almost constantly. If D&D exists in a world where magic is everywhere, why are the shops open? Think about it, with spells like Knock or Dimension Door or Teleport, how are businesses able to keep their stock safe from magical thieves? The question of why are the shops still open in D&D might seem kind of ridiculous at first. They obviously want to make money, but the more you start to think about it, the more that the question of why are shops open in your world will help frame how magic works in your setting. And I think the plight of the humble shopkeeper is actually a really good lens to view the argument of high versus low magic fantasy through. In a low magic setting, magic is mysterious and wonderful, and most people will probably never have encountered someone who can perform magic. So shopkeepers, business owners, anyone with something to protect probably won't worry about whether or not their goods are going to be magically stolen because it's so rare to come across anyone with magical abilities. But in a high magic setting, where magic is really quite common, in reality these shopkeepers would have to take into account magical thieves, otherwise they would constantly be being robbed. How are you going to keep your profits up if your stock is always being stolen by invisible rogues or mist-walking wizards? I think that the way you approach this problem is going to add volumes to your world building and help make your world feel really real and unique. I've come up with one way that you can solve this by creating a new faction that you can use in your game called the Magical Protection Service. The MPS is a legal, if not completely moral, service that is available to any business owner that has enough coin. The premise is simple. A business owner pays the MPS a certain amount of gold, and in return the MPS deploys a number of magical safeguards on the premises of the business. So that might be alarm spells or true seeing spells, or for higher paying clients, maybe even spells of forbiddance. And in the event that someone is robbed and has their valuables stolen, the MPS will track down the thief and bring them to justice. My idea is that the MPS would probably operate in all the major population zones, anywhere there is enough gold to warrant their services, but they probably wouldn't be as widespread and common in smaller towns and hamlets. Businesses in these smaller areas just wouldn't have the turnover to warrant spending money on a third-party company to protect them, when really it's only the local people that they're going to be dealing with and not people moving through and moving on who might steal from them and then vanish. As I mentioned, the MPS would offer a variety of packages for all levels of business. They might be everything from a simple alarm spell for the smallest package, up to spells of forbiddance, or maybe even some construct guards to keep your business safe if you have serious coin to spend. In a high magic setting, a business like this would be incredibly lucrative. Businesses that have magic items or deal in very expensive items would be willing to spend the coin to make sure that magical thieves can't take those. So the MPS would be incredibly wealthy and have a lot of gold and power to throw around. This would mean that the MPS probably employs salespeople, people to go from business to business and attempt to get the businesses to sign up for their services. And I think that something that they would deploy would be some kind of plaque system, something to say this business is protected by the MPS. This serves two really important purposes. One, it's a way for an MPS salesman to look at a building and go, right, I don't need to go there because they already employ our services. But it's also a warning for thieves. If a thief arrives thinking I'm going to rob from this general store and there's a plaque on the door that says this site is protected by the MPS, well, the thief knows there's probably magical protections in there and they are likely to be pursued by the MPS, so they have to decide whether what's inside is worth it or not. There's also a darker side to this plaque service, and you can really play with the morality of this if you want. Picture this: a salesman goes into a small general store in a city and asks them if they have MPS protection. The salesman is very charming, very nice, but the shopkeeper says, I don't bring in enough trade to warrant having the protection of the MPS. Okay, he would say, and look around the business. But you really can't underestimate the desperation of people at the lowest level of society. Who knows whether a vagabond might come past your store and see that you don't have a sign promoting our services and decide that you are the perfect target for them to try and make some quick gold. You say that you're a small shop, how are you going to make ends meet when half of your stock has been stolen? And as you can see here, the pressure comes from the implication. Though the NPS salesman didn't say it and wouldn't say it, you're left to wonder whether or not the NPS would sabotage businesses that don't take out their plaque services. To incorporate your players into this, maybe they'll be contacted by a business who's refused the NPS and the business has recently been burgled and they suspect the NPS has something to do with it. We're going to talk more about the NPS a little bit later in the video, but if you don't want to use something like that, there are a couple of really great other options that we're going to talk about first. And the first of those is mob protection. Now, a similar way to handle the matter of magical burglary to the NPS is by using mob protection. This is much less structured and much more obviously seedy than the NPS, but you can have local crime syndicates that go around businesses and the businesses pay them for protection, just like in real life. This opens up all kinds of opportunities for your players to interact with the underbelly of a city and get to know some of the criminals in a town or city, and it gives you a lot of great story opportunities. Now, the problem with mob protection is that the implication is still a really strong factor here. The mob goes to a business and says, we will protect you in exchange for gold. If the business refuses, they do so knowing that the mob might trash their establishment. So there is always that dynamic between organized criminal syndicates trying to offer protection to businesses. Another really interesting take on this problem of how do you solve the fact that there are shops open in a world with magic is having all shops be run by people with magic. Now, this does a couple of quite interesting things that you can really play with. First is it elevates the merchant class. If every merchant can cast magic, then it could be that they have more real world power than a lot of the nobility. And any time that the merchant class has gained more power than the nobility in history, tension has started and it has eventually led to some kind of conflict. And you can really play on that in your game if all your merchants are magical in nature. This also addresses one of the really core problems with games like D&D. If adventuring is so lucrative, then why doesn't everyone do it? Well, this would answer that by saying it's far easier and far less dangerous for someone with a magical ability to open up a shop than it is to go out and try and slay giants and dragons. Having most vendors be magical also gives you a reason to have non-magical vendors as well. If your merchant class is full of magic users and they are starting to get above their station in the eyes of the nobility, well, maybe the nobility would want to boycott them. They'd want to reduce the amount that they have to rely on magical sellers, so they'd employ non-magical craftspeople, people that do the job the old-fashioned way without magic, and that would give you the opportunity to have all of these non-magical vendors who are aligned with the nobility. And that does a couple of things. First, when your players arrive in a town, they can choose to either go to magical vendors, where they might get a greater variety of things, and they might even get it at a better price, or they can go to the non-magical vendors, and doing that would keep them on side of the nobles. So you can work in some of that social tension and that intrigue into the simple act of your players going to a store. There's no right answer here and there's no best way to do things. In 99 out of 100 games, your players aren't going to wonder, why are the shops open if magic is a thing? But by answering the question and choosing how to deal with it, you can add a new layer to your game. Your whole game isn't going to be about the inner workings of the merchant class, but it's another layer that you can add to your world to help your players feel like it's a real place. If you like the idea of using the magical protection service in your game, I've put together a PDF with absolutely everything you need to be able to play this faction in your game. Things like the background, who the leader is, what their motivations are, some plot hooks to get your players involved in this faction, a cast of characters to be able to drop into your world, and more. You can head over to my Patreon page, pledge any amount and you'll get your copy. If you want to try out this faction without spending any money, you can join my Discord server. I'll leave a link down in the description below. Anyone that joins will be able to go to the announcements channel and pick up a copy of this PDF for free. But I want to know how you handle the problem of magical theft in your games. Let me know if you've employed anything like this in your games before, or if it's something that you just let slide and don't really pay attention to. I really hope you enjoyed this video and it made you think about your world a little deeper. If you did, hit that like button. But until next time, happy gaming. Thanks for watching. If you're new here and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. I release a new RPG, tabletop and world building related content every single week. And if you enjoy what I do here and want to help the channel grow, consider supporting me on Patreon. And if you want to keep watching, I've got another couple videos over there. But until next time, happy gaming.